Folks, you were Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the claims all across the Western world and simultaneously the claims that there is mass homelessness and a huge increase and upsurge in homelessness. Now, I just want to put this in some sort of perspective. At the same time as there's a massive increase in homelessness, so we're told, and bear in mind the globalists control nearly the entire media machine, including all the NGOs and charities, by the way. So at the same time as we're being told there's mass homelessness, there's also, we're being told, there's a mass shortage of workers, and the businesses everywhere are screaming for workers and just can't find them. The positions are being advertised on internet job boards, and the positions are there for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks. The positions are there forever, for all eternity. These positions are being advertised, but somehow nobody ever seems to apply for them. There's a shortage, and the only way to cure this shortage is to even ramp up further the mass immigration. So even a country like Australia, with 25, 26 million people, the last 12 months took in 400,000 migrants. Now, with less than 5% of them having any usable or partly usable skills. Very few of them speak functional English, for example. Many of them are illiterate in their own language. So 400,000 of those people were brought into the country last year. But still, we're told that there's this massive worker shortage whilst there's mass homelessness. Now, I can't reconcile the two there. But let's have a closer look, because it's far more nuanced than can someone get a job delivering pizzas and that takes them out of poverty or something. So there's more to it than that. So let's have a little look at it. Now, the mass immigration, along with increased government regulations as to building and how many apartment blocks can go up, or how much land is available to buy for housing, these sorts of things. So there's and the concentration of building in the hands of a select few builders who are certainly making a lot of money out of the mass immigration thing. But so we've got a mass of people coming in. We've got massive offshore buying, as in offshore investors buying up swathes of real estate, then leaving it empty and vacant. I mean, some of these people, like these Communist Party generals in China, they're buying fucking 200, 300, 400 properties each, using nominees and all sorts of corrupt methods to acquire it and hold on to it. But nor are they just buying low-end property, they're buying at the high end. I was just in a street I was at recently visiting some people we know, and there were 6 houses in the street. It's not that long a street, and they're all being bought by Chinese offshore investor folks, and they're all crawling with Chinese workers. You couldn't find an Anglo or a local worker there. They're all and all peasant workers, by the way, imported peasants from China to do the labouring and the hack and the goon work and that sort of stuff. I don't know how they get away with all this, but so anyway, there's this claim of homelessness, and we've also got a massive offshore buying of residential real estate property that's being left vacant, and also a lot of people coming in wanting to buy property, and they're crowding out the rental market. Now, if you're looking at a downtown or near to downtown Sydney or Melbourne location, you can have 50 plus people, 100 plus people turning up to inspect the property to try and rent it. So that's the shortage of property in and around the city and inner city area. Once you get out, say 100 miles, 150 k's out of the downtown Sydney area, then things stabilise a bit. but the rents are still being centrally fixed in a non-market driven price economy. So rents are artificially high and artificially controlled all around Australia. There is no market-driven rental prices anywhere in Australia. So when the charities, the government, or any commentators talk about there's a shortage of real estate, they don't talk about the mass immigration. They don't talk about the mass offshore buying by offshore investors. And they don't talk about the market, the price fixing and the market rigging that goes on. They don't talk about any of those things, and instead just, oh well, there's just not enough property. So they're not going to any of the details, but there is clearly a property is overpriced heavily, brutally overpriced all across the Western world, and particularly in the big international cities like Sydney. So I don't doubt there's a lot of rent pressure on people. Rents have increased by 3 times faster than wages over the last 50 years. So you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that there's a lot of stress just in that category alone. But let's have a look at now the charities recently. The charities went on a binge of hiring what they call communications and community engagement consultants. They've recently gone on a binge of hiring those sort of people. And at around the same time as they were hiring those people, they suddenly were coming out with these Armageddon type things of homeless has increased by 3-fold, 4-fold, dead bodies are everywhere, children are starving, Hitler, and these stories that are clearly very dramatic. And of course, you've got to have a little girl dressed in pink, photographed there just to ram home the point. Now, I just looking at this idea of assuming the charities are accurate, and again, they're all globalist controlled, these charities. So, but assuming the charities are accurate in their assessment, there's a lot of reasons for homelessness, quite apart from, say, drug addiction and things like that. Mental health issues. And the shortage of social housing for those sort of people that are in wretched circumstances, no matter what. And those are the people that would find it difficult to gain employment and so on, and unlikely to keep the employment, assuming they even got some. So there's that, a shortage of social housing, and clearly some of the people on the street are fall into that category, which is not an indication of economic deterioration per se, but certainly I think those people should be looked after in various ways, and some sort of accommodation would help. Now, there's also a rowdy element where they're just so violent, these people, that even in sort of community housing, a boarding house or something like that, where you can often get 6 months accommodation. They're people that are so difficult and rowdy and boisterous and violent that they're not allowed in those sort of places, so they're kind of living on the street. Now, some of these charities do meals for people. So, they come around 3 times a day and serve meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And so you can get some of these meals, by the way, are quite good. I was sitting outside at a pizza place in one area, and they pulled up nearby, and I saw it, and I was quite surprised at how good the meal was. But a lot of people here, they don't check you. You don't have to prove that you're living on the street. You don't have to prove that you're receiving a government hand. Anyone who turns up can get the meal. So you find a lot of people that are exploiting that. Particularly a lot of recent migrants think, oh, they're giving away good meals down there. Well, why would I not take advantage of that? Why would I not exploit it? But the idea that that's actually for people suffering genuine hardship, well, why should I care? They're giving it away. There's no checks to make sure that I'm I'm a needy person, so why don't I just take? So there's a lot of people just moving on, thinking, well, I'll save a few bucks. And if you've got a family of four, and even if you're living very modestly, you can still save yourself, a couple of $100 a week by taking this food from these charities. These charities, in turn, are able to then claim more money from local councils and local governments and that sort of thing. So they don't mind, in a way, because that means they can then go pleading and begging to the government, say, look, see where the numbers of people coming to get meals have doubled and tripled, so you need to give us more money, that type of thing. So that goes around in circles. So I don't know. So the press releases that were coming out of the charities followed directly after they started beefing up their as they call it, community engagement and social media offices. So you'd have to be quite sceptical of the things they're saying, and assume that they're ginning it up as hard as they can, and had a premeditated plan to do so. And then the amount of people, particularly the recent migrants to Australia, that certainly go out of their way to exploit any of these sort of loopholes of handouts and giveaways, whether they need it or not. But hey, I'm saving a few bucks, why should they care? Now, there are also other things too. That there's been very, very aggressive lending to younger people over the last few years, where these people are did you know you can get a special loan to buy this really nice car and have these nice clothes and have these nice electricals in your kids that want the highest quality accommodation. They want a recently renovated kitchen and bathroom in a top quality apartment in a great location. So there's a lot of people living right up to the absolute edge of their means. If they miss a day of work or one paycheck or something goes wrong, I mean, they're screwed almost immediately. They hit the wall sort of within 24 hours of something going wrong. And so there's a lot of people living not only beyond their means, but living right on the edge of their means, and relying heavily on say an extra job or parents helping them out with the bills or something like that. And if anything goes wrong there, they hit the wall pretty quickly. But these aren't people who are without an income or something. They load themselves up with debt. There was not so long ago, there was a young kid, a guy in his early 20s, and he borrowed like fuck to buy. Had this really nice car and all the other stuff, and he was all starry-eyed about all the gadgets that he had, but then the job, the reasonably well-paid job that he had, that the company folded, or something. It was issues beyond his control, but it was an unusually high income based on certain factors that he was unlikely to get again. So he found suddenly he had all these debts and no way of servicing them. But because he borrowed so much and the leverage was so much that even if he sold everything up, he'd still be in debt for $1 gazillion, and then he couldn't afford his rent, and then he had a falling out with his parents, and then he was on the street. But that's a whole lot of things have to go wrong, one after the other, before that. But these sort of things. So I think there's a whole variety of reasons why people may be in a straitened situation, long-term ill health, for example, things like that. So I don't think it's just an expression of the economics. But coming now to the idea of there's a shortage of workers, I think that is utter and total bullshit. There is no shortage of workers. There's a shortage of businesses that want to pay the money and provide the conditions to attract the workers. And I appreciate in some rural locations it might be harder than it is in the downtown city and that sort of stuff. But it's related to market prices. If you've got a struggle getting people in at $100 a week, offer 110, offer 120, and so on. Also, there are things where people that have been on government benefits for a while are reluctant to let them go, because if you get a job, the government benefits stop immediately. There's no sort of smooth or changeover period. They lose the benefits immediately, and then If the job doesn't work out, or they get fired, or something goes wrong, then they have to wait 6 weeks before they can get the benefits again. So unless that they can prove hardship, which again is a separate issue. So a lot of these especially younger people think, well, why would I take that risk and lose the benefits, and with it, cheap transport, medical and dental, and all that other stuff? Why would I take that risk? I work for a job that's only going to pay really marginally more than I'm getting currently for doing nothing. So these are the these are wider issues to go around. But the homelessness, you can't have a situation where people are homeless, can't get jobs, and also have a situation where businesses are screaming for workers and can't find them. You can't have both. Now, one other point I'll make is the majority of the supposed homelessness situation exists in areas of Australia where the climate is the mildest and most pleasant. So that again indicates that it's people have gravitated towards those climatic circumstances and conditions, which in turn has artificially increased the number of people that may be classified as homeless. But there are there's a whole bunch of things going into this, but no one's talking about the real issues. Why would a country the population size of Australia import 400,000 people as migrants when less than 20,000 of those actually have any usable skills or required skills? I mean, why would any country do that to itself? But it's happening all across the West: United States, Canada, Britain, Australia, and so on. So why aren't we talking about the masses of Australian real estate being bought up by Chinese and offshore investors, and the big investment firms like BlackRock and all that sort of thing? Why aren't we talking about that? But none of the real issues are actually getting talked about. None of the facts are being put on the table, and all we're applied with is propaganda and exaggerations and photographs of little girls in pink, and no one's talking about the real issues. You've been fantastic today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.